In the book Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth, he opens chapter 5, titled A Grateful Heart, with these words. What is your most important asset? What is your most important asset? Do you have your answer? He goes on to say, conditioned as it is to materialistic values, your mind might begin weighing the relative usefulness of things. However, if you carefully search within yourself, you may come to the awareness that your most important asset is the conscious control of your own life. Nothing else can satisfy or fulfill unless you enjoy the freedom that comes from control of your inner world of mind and emotions. He quotes Walt Whitman, who said, "Oh, while I live, to be the ruler of life, not a slave, to meet life as a powerful conqueror, and nothing exterior to me shall ever take command of me." In Unity, we have a long history of teaching abundance principles. Abundance principles, the ideas of circulation, the ideas of abundance, and the ideas of prosperity. And I'm always interested when people have immersed themselves in our teachings, what their experience of how they awakened to or got or transferred the teachings from books and ideas into a living practice, how that happened for them, how it was really activated and came alive in their life. So this week I asked my friend Reverend Brenda Arrett from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to share a little bit about her abundance practice.
Good morning. My journey to the realization of having enough, which is what I call abundance and prosperity, only took, I want to say, about the first 25 or 30 years of my adult life. So for those of you who have this realization in a snap, in an overnight process, my heartfelt high five. I came out of a family system of not enough. I had an unconscious, deep-seated belief about it. Then I found Unity. My minister there was talking about prosperity. Abundance, what is that? And so I started having conversations with her about that. What is that? What does that mean? I learned one of Unity's basic foundational spiritual tools, denials and affirmations. I was more a fan of affirmations than I was denials at the time. Oh, I was affirmative. I ran every day. I would do hundreds of affirmations during my running. I was still creating my pit of debt in spite of my earnest affirmations. Then I took a class offered in our ministry called the 4 T's. There was an orientation for the class, sat in on that, and in that orientation, the facilitator said, over the next 12 weeks, you will be committing, for the next 12 weeks, you will be committing to tithing 10%. I could not breathe, and I'm serious. The gasp that was heard around the world. So I said to the facilitators, well, how the hell does that happen when I can't even meet, how does it make ends meet by the end of the month? That wasn't working for me. Everyone in the group turned to me, smiled, and said, all you have to do is trust. I began the class. Man, I bit the big bullet, started tithing 10% of my income, did that for a long period of time, continuing to create my pit of debt, and worked on that trusting thing. Trust what? with so much fear under there. In that trust step came the work of that unconscious core belief. There is not enough, ever. So as I'm working with that core belief with my minister, learning to trust from the bottom of my soul, and practicing the principles of giving and receiving, practicing the principles of the law of circulation, practicing the principles of the law of infinite expansion. And I still didn't have it. So, being the brilliant student I am, I started messing with my tithe. Well, I'll just tithe 5%, not 10. I'll tithe maybe 2 or 3%. Just in case you're on that road or considering that road, doesn't work. Like, trust me. So then I decided, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll just pick a percentage no matter what and stay with it. And I committed to that percentage and increasing that percentage by a point every year. So I had some consistency and I had some anchoring in the principle. Still didn't have it. I took a course here at Unity Village. How many of us are familiar with the great and wonderful Reverend Jim Rosemergy? Took a course with him called Prosperity. And in that course, he said something about gratitude. Over time, I came across Reverend Eric Butterworth's, he was a Unity minister for decades, came across his book on spiritual economics, chapter 5, The Grateful Heart. And the words that became stamped on my heart were, gratitude is a causative energy. I had the final piece of my puzzle. All of this time in my journey, all of my affirmations, all of my practices, I knew my good was out there. I knew I lived in an abundant universe. It's out there. It's coming to me. It's on its way. Gratitude is a causative energy. Flipped an internal switch in me. And for the first time in my journey, I understood, oh, prosperity, abundance, enough happens from the inside out, not the outside in.
So the 4 keys that activated the practice at a deep level, that took it out of theory and into expression, emotion, and living for Reverend Brenda were working with the belief system, really doing an inventory of our beliefs around abundance and around lack, working with that system, using affirmations and denials to uplift and transform it. The second piece of the practice was tithing, engaging in the law of circulation in some sort of committed fashion that grows and expands consciousness. And then stepping into principle, looking at law and principle and saying, how can I understand, dive into, and experience the principles that are always at work? And then the last was an expansive idea of gratitude, taking gratitude beyond what the common conditioning and idea of gratitude is, and into a practice of exploring and then experiencing and then becoming causative gratitude. Causative gratitude. So what does it mean to have gratitude at the gate? What does it mean to have gratitude right when you step into anything and everything? What does it mean not to wait for this idea of gratitude, appreciation, and thanks to come from something? What if there is something about gratitude that for many of us we have not tapped into, experienced, or understood yet? You are sitting on a gold mine. If the word causative gratitude is new to you, today is your happy day. because there is so much more to the practice. Think about your gratitude practice. Think about how you feel appreciation and gratitude in the world. Just take a moment and be with that. Think about what it is for you. How do you experience it? Express it. Live it. There are concepts of gratitude, and I'm going to go through a few of them today. Certainly there are more. And absolutely, there is no concept or practice of gratitude that is bad in any way, shape, or form. But when we step into activating our principles, when we step into law, and when we step into a spiritual practice that has awareness and mindfulness and power to it, we can find that we have abilities and forces and powers within us, among us, and at our disposal that we were completely underutilizing and possibly even unaware of. To really get that gratitude doesn't need to come from the outer world, that we're not necessarily, when we engage in an abundance or gratitude practice, we don't have to look for it to come to us, and that it's not something to wait for, is liberating. Taking on the idea that gratitude is a generative power, that it is actually a force, that it comes from who you are, who I am, and is something that you put into motion from the inside out, will change the world in which you live, move, and have your being. You may have heard, if there's only one prayer you ever say, let it be thank you. It's known that the idea of appreciation is one of the highest vibrational fields. It's one of the highest states of being. We don't really even have to, conceive of that in an analytical sense. We can experience it, right? When you are in a state of being thankful, when you're in a state of appreciation and gratitude, it's just like there's nothing else like it, right? So what if you don't have to wait for something good to happen to experience that? What if your waiting time is done? If you get beyond the idea of I am in the flow of life and you get into the idea that I am the flow of life. If you get beyond the idea that I am a mighty magnet, not that it's not a good idea, I love that affirmation. But what happens when we step beyond the affirmation of I am a mighty magnet into I am a mighty force? Gratitude is appreciation in a highest sense, and sometimes that experiences itself in our world as an appreciation for what is. So when we are present to what our lives are, when we're putting principles together with the practice and present moment awareness, we're no longer at war or at odds with what is. We have entered a portal where we're not resisting anything, and we are actually experiencing all that a moment has to offer in the now. The different forms of gratitude I want to talk about today are responsive gratitude, reflective gratitude, show me gratitude, and then causative gratitude. To start, you may be really familiar with one. Responsive gratitude is like obligatory gratitude. It's a gratitude that something happens and you say thank you. Someone gives you something and you appreciate it. It's that very polite, very common exchange gratitude, right? Based on an exchange. Eric Butterworth in Spiritual Economics says this. He says, let us consider this key as an important element, though normally overlooked, element in the process of achieving prosperity. And when we talk about prosperity, when I speak about prosperity and unity, I'm not talking about your finances. I'm not talking about money. What I am talking about is abundance of all things good, abundance of all things love, abundance of all things light and life. That may take the form of money. That may take the form of relationships. That may take the form of health and wellness. but it is that I am the flow of life and getting principle at a deep level where we see beyond duality. He says, but first, a point of clarification. We usually consider gratitude and thanksgiving on the basis of obligation. For instance, someone does something for us and we feel obligated to show some kind of appreciation. Traditional religionists would insist that we owe it to God to give thanks for all of our blessings. All this is good. We should be grateful. It is an important social grace. But even more, it is a requisite for high-level wellness. Now, you know how people react if you are not grateful, but what about God? Will God be disturbed if you do not return thanks? Will God say of you, such an ingrate? The fact is, it doesn't make any difference to God whether you give thanks or not. Collective gasp. It doesn't make any difference to God whether you give thanks or not. Some of you have heard the little joke, God doesn't have self-esteem issues, self-confidence problems. God is not enmeshed and is not codependent and waiting for your approval. Butterworth didn't say that, but it makes a lot of difference to you. It makes a lot of difference to you. God is too universal, too almighty to be dependent upon your thanksgiving. Meister Eckhart probably shocked his colleagues in medieval times when he said, I never give thanks to God for loving me because he can't help himself. Whether he would or not, it's his nature. It is in his nature. It is in her nature. It is in the nature of Godness itself. It doesn't say that either. You see, gratitude is not for God. You are not obligated to thank God for your life, for your job, for your prosperity. However, giving thanks is an important state of your consciousness that keeps you in an awareness of oneness with the divine flow. In your awareness of oneness with the divine flow. So that idea of responsive gratitude is an exchange gratitude. It's something happened, and in exchange, I'm grateful. Reflective gratitude kind of is that step where we may have an attitude of gratitude, where we may make gratitude lists. We may go to bed, and as we're going to bed, we reflect on the day, and we look for things we're grateful for. We kind of scan the field and say, you know, I am so grateful that I have this in my life and that in my life, and I'm grateful for this and that. And we, write them down, or we just make note of them. Right now, we're in a prosperity group, and we have about 27 people in this amazing group where we meet in this abundance spirit group every week. And one of the beauties of meeting with a group for a period like 10 weeks with a purpose, with a collective purpose and a collective mission, is that you can set a focus and you become aware of things you may have otherwise missed. So this practice of reflective gratitude, when you come together, because each week we look at anything that we appreciate through the week. So we really do an inventory and we say, what happened this week? Let my eyes be open. Let me see what is in front of me all the time that I may be overlooking, and let me pause to log it in my consciousness, to feel it in my being, and then to share it with others so as to multiply it and experience it again, right? And so we write down every week what we're grateful for, what happened, what's going well, to focus, to retrain the mind to see what's going well, right? And also to look at the unexpected income that's coming in, to look at our tithes that we are giving out, to look at ways that we have seen that we had opportunities to serve or give of who we are, give of our talents, and to see how we committed to our spiritual practice and we gave that to self and to the universe and to the higher order of life. And so it's an amazing practice. It's an incredible practice that can just awaken us to recognize there is so much right before me that I tend not to see. There is so much in the midst that when I go about my regular day-to-day life, I don't even get it. I don't even slow down enough or stop to appreciate. And so this certainly cultivates a practice of thankfulness, appreciation, and awareness. Think about that shift. Much of life exists right before your eyes, right in front of our vision, but beyond our vision. There is so much right in front of you and within you in every moment that you are not seeing. This is one of the big pieces of the practicing of awakening. Think about the master teacher. When we look metaphysically at the loaves and fish and the stories of abundance and teachings in Scripture, we can recognize that those stories aren't always what meets the eye. You know, the loaves and the fish, it's like this gathering, like a picnic or a potluck, where, you know, there's only so much at the table. There's only so much in front of you. But someone that practices principles, someone that gets it, someone that knows it, knows that there is something behind all of that, that they're not looking from the material realm to get good. They're not looking for it to come. They're not looking at the fish to multiply themselves. They're not looking at the loaves to multiply. They're not thinking it comes from that material good. They know that the multiplication and the abundance comes within. They know it's a consciousness, and it is even proposed with some Bible scholars that in fact what happened was Jesus had and beheld and demonstrated a consciousness that he knew, and when he spoke, he called forth the spiritual substance that is always everywhere present and available. And at that time, people may have brought whatever they brought to a potluck. People, you know, they may have served whatever they served at these meals, and they may have had a certain amount. But a consciousness was called forth that was connected with the absolute presence of spiritual substance from the inside out. And everyone that had their little loaves of bread tucked in their purses under their, you know, probably armpits at the time, they started pulling them out. And as they sent around the basket to share the bread, some was taken, but more was added. Is anyone a food carrier? I have friends and sisters that have the, you know, when they say they need food, they need it. And so they always carry around a bar or two. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you have nuts in your pocket right now. And if we were to generate a consciousness of giving, even though we don't have any food in this sanctuary, we could probably have a little mini potluck right now. That's being connected to the principle, getting it. There's another thing that can happen when we stop at reflective gratitude. For some of us, we have interesting minds. I like calling them interesting. And we can be curious about those minds. But some of us, when we've gone into the practice of making a gratitude list, we don't always feel good. Many people do, but some of us, we don't feel good. The first problem with that type of practice as a limitation, limiting ourselves only to that type of gratitude practice, is that it works well when we can see good things happening. It works really well when our minds are good at finding the good things. But it doesn't work so well when we get into depression, or when we have minds that like to play tricks on us, or when we have minds that when we immediately start thinking about what we appreciate and what's good, we start thinking about the things that other people have that we're missing, or the things that we thought would be in our lives that are not present in our lives. Do you get what I'm saying? The sense of lack. It happens sometimes with people when they start practicing an affirmation. The rest of their being goes, well, that's not even true. I don't have that. I don't have that at all. And then you go, but I am happy. And you try to just keep saying it. But in your being, you're like, not. And so for some minds, and the spiritual practice is not about trying on anyone's shoes. It's not about looking to anyone else's Bible or writing or scripture. It's about taking the scripture off your own heart, remembering and recognizing that everything you need is written upon your own heart. And if you honor the truth of your being, if you honor the fullness of your being, and you begin the journey of exploration, you will be guided, you will understand, and by knowing thyself, you will awaken. So it's ours to honor that practice of who we are and to bring it, not just to say, let me just keep doing this because that's what everybody else does and it seems to work. But look, okay, so this is what my mind's doing. So this practice of reflective gratitude for some people sometimes can actually help us focus on what we don't have. And just those of you that it works really, really well for, that might not make sense. But those of you that have other minds are probably going, oh, that's what that was. That's why I never liked those lists. Eric Butterworth says this. He says, some people, realizing the importance of the grateful heart, begin looking for things for which to give thanks. However, they mistakenly start with the perspective of inadequacy and insufficiency. And thus, they simply become more conscious of limitations. The result is, instead of counting their blessings, they count their envies. He is so talented. She has so many lovely things. Or I wish I had a lovely home like they have. As a result of this very subtle process, they develop paradoxically ungrateful hearts. He goes on to say, to pray for prosperity out of a sense of complaint or discouragement is to effectively compound the problem. You may pray for improved financial conditions, but if you are feeling poor, your feeling is the consciousness you will be projecting. A grateful heart draws to itself great things. The ungrateful heart is discouraged, complaining, covetous level of thought, will draw to itself limited things. He goes on to say that Theodore Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have right where you are. So begin not with subtle resistance for what you don't have, but with what you have. A job, no matter how inadequate. Some money, even if you're down on the proverbial last penny, down to the proverbial last penny. Get the view from the top. Remember that in truth, there is abundance everywhere. Remember that in truth, there is abundance everywhere. So give thanks. Reflective gratitude. So the next type of gratitude is what I'm calling show me gratitude. It's kind of a bridge gratitude. It's the bridge between knowing these principles into getting these principles. It's the bridge of gratitude where you start believing the principles at a deep level, and it's like, I know this is the truth of the universe. I know that there is spiritual substance. I know that there's a way to live by spiritual law, not material law. I know that my good doesn't come to me, but it comes in me, through me, as me. So when you start getting this, but still you don't feel it, has anyone had those relationships where it's like, you're supposed to be this totally self-sustaining, happy person, but you're like, but I need love. Like, and it'd be nice if it comes from some other people outside of there to me. Like, do I really have to be such an island and so strong and so big that I feel love even when there's nobody loving me, even when it's not around, right? Of course, there are always blinders when we're in that space because that's never the truth. But this type of bridge gratitude is when you know the principles, you know that you know that you know. I trust that. That is true. And I'm trying to work with this mind of mine and my perception and my perspective to get it to be an experience because it just doesn't feel true. I had a miscarriage that I shared about 3 years ago, and it was an amazing experience. Amazing can encompass a lot of different feelings and emotions. And fast forward to the next time that I became pregnant, And I was so excited. It was 3 years later, and it felt like this, I can't believe this happened. Bring it on. Yay. Oh my gosh. And then at about 7 weeks, instead of the first time at 3 months, in 7 weeks, I had another miscarriage. And my mind was just, I was already a little quiet about the whole thing, a little scared about the whole thing, a little like, I didn't go out and shout it from the rooftop. But then to have it happen again. But the first time, and through this 3-year process of taking everything as a spiritual practice, right? How can this grow me? How am I growing in this? I really started doing the show me the good in this. Because sometimes when things happen that seem bad, the only thing we can do is to say, let me see what might have been good in this, right? Is there any? And sometimes we can't find it. But what I noticed with the second miscarriage was that in the midst of moments of sorrow or disappointment, right there beside it in the exact same moment, came thoughts of hope or thoughts of peace or thoughts of grace. And I could no longer be in duality about it. I could no longer just sit in a miserable thought or a separation thought or a limitation thought or a lack thought or a woe is me thought. I could no longer leave myself there. That in fact, something had shifted in my practice. And the moment I had the yin, I had the yang. The moment I had the black, I had the white. The moment I had the this is good, I had the this is bad. So the moment brought it all together. One of my favorite definitions of prosperity is that in the moment one is aware of a need, the source, the resource shows itself. That they come together. And this is what happened to me because in the moment I was thinking, I thought, this is really actually hopeful. This is hopeful. Like, as much as I want to be disappointed, I feel like at the moment I was praying to be able to pray about possibly letting go of being a mother and parenthood. At the moment I was trying to draw that up and say, you're going to have to start praying about this. So let's start with praying about being able to pray about it. I got this little glimmer of maybe you wouldn't be so crazy not to let go of this yet. Maybe you could give it a couple more months. In the moment where I thought, how did this, and last time, all I could think was, thank you, God, that this happened at 7 weeks instead of 3 months. For any women that have gone through that process, there's a big difference with after the 3-month mark and early on. And it was like I couldn't pull them apart. All I could have was gratitude. And then, on top of that, all I could have was peace of mind and gratitude for the fact that I could see from the outside I'm going through this again, and guess what? I am lifted. I am supported. I am okay. Like, you know what I'm talking about in times when just the fact that you're okay is like freaking fantastic? Where it's like the fact that I am not under everything is just so beautiful. It's like the kind of tears that they hurt, but you're like, yes. The kind of pain that's like heartbreaking, but you're like, I'm alive. And the type of gratitude that comes when things push us to our edge and we realize I dwell in the midst of light. So that's why I call it the bridge and show me. The more we practice show me gratitude, the more emergent and natural it becomes to step into causative gratitude. Eric Butterworth says, referring to the gratitude practice, he says, when you understand this, you see that a grateful heart does not need something to be grateful for. A grateful heart does not need something to be grateful for. Causative gratitude. One can be grateful with the same spontaneity as being happy. It simply flows forth from within and becomes a causative energy. It becomes a causative energy. He goes on to say later, so you give thanks not for these things, but from the awareness that there is always an all-sufficiency even within the insufficiency. How does that feel? That thought, the thought of the possibility that I can let go of the idea that I need to wait for good things to happen to be grateful. That I need to have an inventory and my inventory needs to look good as I want it to look or better than other people's in order to appreciate. To get out of the idea that I need to look to things and to people and to outer little lowercase sources for what serves. Causative gratitude is about how you approach life. It's about what you bring to it, what you be and become. It's about how you approach your job, how you approach your relationships, how you approach your experiences, how you approach death, how you approach life, how you approach everything, because it comes from the consciousness that you are, and that consciousness then goes before us. It's beyond gratitude out of self-interest, beyond gratitude out of receiving an exchange, but it's gratitude from tapping the portal of consciousness that is anointed, that is awake, that is aware of the majesty of each moment and the full gift of life. Causative gratitude, what we bring to the gate. In Butterworth's book, he quotes Charles Fillmore, and Fillmore says, God is the source of a mighty stream of substance, and you are the tributary of that stream, a channel of expression. Blessing the substance increases the flow. Fillmore says, blessing the substance increases the flow. Eric Butterworth says, keep alive the commitment to the view from the top. Keep centered in the feelings of thanksgiving. It's not just to be grateful for loving friends, for affluence and wonderful things, and for divine order in everything that happens in your life. It is so much more. You are grateful from the root of reality that is evidenced by these things. Your thanksgiving is more than a response to what is happening around you or to you. It is a celebration of truth, which becomes the causal assurance of a continuity of blessings leading toward prosperity for you. This is your birthright. Namaste. So it is the time in our service that we get to engage in the law of circulation, to circulate our good, to do that grateful exchange. So would you take your tithes and your love offerings in your hands, knowing that we create this spiritual community every Sunday, and let us bless them and know this blessing together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is.
To begin, take a step. Move ahead and do your best. There is power in intent. Use your dreams to reinvent yourself. Child of light, ending darkness, shining bright. All the fires you can't ignite will lead you through the night. There is nothing you can't do. Take your mind and you put it to. See it here and be clear. In your heart be sincere and be thankful for the infinite power of the universe. Thankful that the power within is love. Thankful to be an integral part of creation. And isn't life magnificent? We can shake and we can bake. We can give and we can make good love and do so much. We have hands and we can touch, reaching out and building trust. And our friends, it means so much. We can walk and we can talk. We can teach and can be taught to find our way and just play and be grateful every day. So thankful for the beautiful life I was given. Thankful for my friends and my family. Thankful for the time that we spent together. Thankful, yeah. Oh, the power of love is real. If you use it, you can heal. Be abundant and give it out. So abundant and give it out. Oh, there's more than enough for everyone. Trust in the flow when you get you some. Be abundant and give it out. So abundant and give it out. Feel the love that's all around, coming up and going down. Find a way to make love stay and be grateful in our way. Yeah. Thankful for the beautiful life I was given. Thankful for my friends and my family. Thankful for the time that we spent together. Thankful, I'm so thankful.
Woo! Thank you, Nikki and our music team. We love you. So we join our hearts and our minds together as we bless these tithes and offerings. We bless them and we dedicate them to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of light, love, and wisdom, the Spirit that binds us, the Spirit that is among us. We dedicate ourselves in this moment to pressing out, to it being and to sharing this expression of light and truth that reminds us that we are born blessed and we live in love. And so it is. Amen. So we have our special softball day. So if you want to grab a lunch or something like that and come over, if you're on the live stream and you want to just get in your car and run down here, if you have people, you want to just put it out on Facebook that they can come join us, even if they're not part of our spiritual community. This is a great opportunity for them to see the grounds at Unity Village that they might not otherwise be able to just have a fun potluck or a fun picnic, pack in, pack out. Then you can have them join us. So feel free to open that up. Next Sunday, one of my very best minister friends, Kevin Ross, is going to be here. I will be here as well. It is a Sunday not to miss. Martha Creek and Kevin Ross are two of the most probably valued speakers that come to visit us here at Unity Village Chapel. So he's amazing. I've tried before just clicking on one of his talks and only watching like 5 minutes. I've got like 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then there I am, sitting there watching the whole thing because he's incredible. Our prayer team is here to pray with you confidentially one-on-one after the service. And if you are someone that likes texting, we now have our text to give. So there is a new way of giving, and if you would like to write down that number, you only have to sign up once and you put your information through. We know that we have had people that would like other ways to give, and so that is now available here, so you can do that on Sunday mornings in the sanctuary. Let us close with the peace song and the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is.